Test, test. Hi folks, Mr. Saibah here. We're going to go over basic bass drum techniques. These are things that you can start to use in your regular playing, and it's also really important to understand how the drum works so that you understand how to make the best sound out of it. First things first, there are two types of drums in the world: drums of definite pitch and drums of indefinite pitch. A drum of definite pitch might be a timpani. In other words, you can hear a pitch on it. A drum of indefinite pitch usually has two heads, not always, and usually is not tuned to a single note. You can, in fact, tune double-headed toms and even a bass drum to a single note. But the intent of the instrument, by having both the heads, is not to have a definite pitch, but rather to have a series of pitches that are consonant with one another. A snare drum is an example of that. If you've ever played a snare drum and the bottom head or the top head has been tuned poorly to either one, then it sounds really ringy and unpleasant. Also, it's got a snare mechanism which allows it to be a short, crisp sound. That would be a drum of indefinite pitch. So we're talking about a drum of indefinite pitch. What you're going to need for this exercise are some mallets, and we're going to go over the anatomy of a bass drum mallet really quick. A bass drum mallet should have a fairly sizable handle. They do make some with very thin handles. If you have small hands, that might work, but what we're looking for is a mallet with mass. This is a big drum, and so you're going to need a lot of mass to help move the airstream inside this drum and produce a pleasing sound. So the bigger, meaning thicker mallet with a larger head on it, is going to be really, really, really effective. So too, there's times when we do not want the drum to have a single loud boom, but at times we want it to be more resonant and eerie and enveloping, kind of like a thunderstorm. In this case, we're going to have mallets that would have a thinner head, a smaller head, and a thinner shaft, so that we can hold on to them and not move as much mass. We'll talk about roll technique as well. Step one, let's get to basic bass drum technique. The bass drum has a variety of different playing surfaces that you can on the batter side, the side that you play on. There's also the resonant side. On the resonant side, you won't be able to see this off camera, so I'm showing you now on the batter side. You're going to take your hands and spread them open as such, and you're going to take it just slightly off the center of the head, and you're going to dampen the drum in between strokes with the large mallet. This allows the drum not to get louder, 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 ringy, 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 ringy as it's going on. So as I would play, now I'm demonstrating on this head, but this would be on the other head. Play, dampen, and that allows the drum not to be too boomy and overwhelming to an ensemble. So too, there's times where we won't dampen, when we want to have a big bass drum hit and we want that sound to decay. Okay, that talks about the left hand. Let's talk about the right hand. It's held just like any drumstick. It is not held like a caveman would be eating maybe a beef rib, okay? The second thing is that, especially with this kind of bass drum, which is mounted on a suspended bass drum carrier, you're going to need to place your foot, your left foot, behind the wheel in the back right corner. And what you're going to do is you're going to control the drum from moving forward and sideways as you hit it. Imagine if you were playing a drum and it just kept scooting away from you. That would be a problem. That's what this foot does, even with our wheel locks on or off. Secondly, we're going to take a chair and we're going to place it right in front of us because our left leg is going to be placed upon that chair, and you're going to do something called knee dampening. So on the left head, on the resonant head, you have the hand doing what I call spider hands on and off. But there's going to be a time when you got a mallet in your hand and you're playing and you need to dampen it completely. That's what your knee is going to do. It's going to lean in and push on the head so that it dampens it, because you're not going to be able to do this well without creating a sound, dampening with the right hand. So we use knee dampening on the batter side of the head. Let's talk about playing position and why we play in certain spots. Many times you're going to hear your music teacher tell you to play off the center of the head to get kind of a whooshy sound. And I think there's a time and place for that. But so too, in music, we have accents in the music. Or we have music that has bass drum serving as almost a metronome, like in a march where it's always a downbeat. And if you play whooshy with it, it's going to be harder for the ensemble to hear that. So there's playing in the exact center, and then there's playing slightly off center. For beats with a large mallet, we'll play either dead center or slightly off center. It's going to depend on the music, whether we want something that's going to be more accented and forward driving, or if it's going to be something where we want it more lyrical and more resonant. That might be at a climax of a big lyrical piece where they have a bass drum that plays. That gives a really beautiful, pleasing sound. In a march, though, sounding like that is going to be indefinite. We're not going to know where the beat is necessarily, and we really want to. All the characteristics of playing any drum, higher means louder, lower means softer, pertain especially to the bass drum. And this is where I see students they just think that they just keep pounding along at the beat, that it's going to be okay, and that's not true. As a matter of fact, the bass drum is often a poorly played instrument, and it is actually way more challenging. So, we're going to play straight down beats right now. Now, in this case, this little swinger thing, the locks on these aren't working, so I'm going to actually place my left leg so that it holds it upright, slightly upright, and then you're going to see that I'm going to have my mallet dead center. This is going to be for more staccato passages, and I'm going to play and dampen with the left hand whenever the right hand's not playing. And these are going to be quarter notes. 1, 2, and 1, 2, ready, play. Now you'll notice as I'm playing those quarter notes, I really strive to try to keep the sound smooth and even. And it wasn't loud. It doesn't have to be loud. Yet I'm playing right in the center of the drum. What I'm getting is, by playing in the center of the drum, this sort of accented so now we hear the downbeat. We hear the start of the note. Listen to me play this now, quarter notes, off center, and listen to how whooshy it is. 1, 2, ready, go. Up close, you can hear the accents, the beat. Farther away, not accents, the beat. Farther away, you really hear more of the resonance. So playing dead center, off center, can be done softly and controlled, and I'm still doing the same dampening technique. But you can hear a very clear, definite downbeat when you're playing in the exact center of the head. I encourage students that are playing bass drum, whenever you have a musical passage that is kind of motoric, you're going to play dead center in that bass drum. Whenever you have something that is non-motoric, maybe it's this big, beautiful, lovely accent, you'll play it off center. Now listen to the difference. I'm going to play a loud stroke, dead center, and a loud stroke, off dead center. And listen to the very difference of the two, back to back. Here is dead center. There was an immediate pop to that, an accent. And I didn't have to really strike that hard, but boy, it sure sounded loud. Now look when I take this very same stroke, same amount of inertia, and I play off center, and listen to what it sounds like now. It's way bigger and whooshier. There's a time and place for that. If you're playing a piece of music where there's a big accented point, you're going to want to play dead center. If you're playing something where it's just a big climactic moment, you're going to play off center. Notice, technique stays the same, whether I'm playing a struck note or a non-struck whether I'm playing an accented note or a non-accented note, whether I'm playing dead center or off center, okay? And again, your left leg is always available to be engaged for dampening. Now, the other thing I want you to be aware of is if your drum is especially large, you can take and provide dampening to the surface of the drum. Take a small piece of felt or muslin, something that is soft, and you're going to take a clamp and you're going to clamp it here, and you're going to let that resonance be taken up just gently by this cloth. Listen to what this sounds like when I'm playing dead center with the cloth on. Sounds very articulate, and you get to actually hear maybe a little bit more of that. Now listen to it when I take it off, and I'm playing the same thing. There's more of a whoosh to it. So there's a time and place for this. I wouldn't say always, but I would say if you're playing soft musical passages, you might want to put that on and make sure that it's spread gently across the drum. So too, make sure that there's nothing on it that could vibrate and buzz. Nothing is more irritating than to hear a buzz on your drum. Now let's get to basic roll technique. There are times when this instrument can be especially effective to create either a gently crescendoed roll or a same volume soft sound that creates kind of this eeriness and foreboding. I like playing with a traditional grip, which means I'm going to have my thumb and first finger, and this ring finger is going to be engaged with the stick. Now, the reason I do that is I don't have to shift my shoulders if I were playing match grip. However, if you can't control this, play it match grip, not a big deal. We're going to give up dampening on the left head because, well, we don't have a hand for that. And when it comes time to dampen, we're going to need to make sure that we can reach over quickly. So we need to provide a pathway to reach over, and we're going to spider hand while we're holding onto the mallets and touch the drum like that to dampen it. So any sort of a whooshy sound, a roll, as it were, is always played to the edge of the drum, and it's played in sympathy with the drum head's vibration. So let me show you what that should sound like. At the start of that roll, you heard it go until I got to the point where the roll was smooth and even and the head was vibrating. And when it got to that point of vibrating, you heard less of the attack of the mallet head and more of the drum roll itself. That provided a real kind of eerie background. And that's exactly how rolls are going to start, because the head is still. So it's going to have a little bit of a thuddy attack. You just play it very gently to get the head into sympathy. And I'm striking a very slow roll. Now, as I'm playing a crescendoed roll, I'm going to make sure that I don't necessarily change the speed of the roll. I change the height of the roll. I get higher as I crescendo. And I don't really even need to move into the center of the head. I just need to stay there. So now this is going to be crescendoed from soft to loud. At some point I sped up a little bit because I heard it going a little too loudly. So I sped it up a little bit. You're going to have to find where that even medium is. So too, almost always after a roll, there's a big accent. Not always, but oftentimes. When we do that, we're going to take whichever hand we desire. I usually use my right hand because I think it's more awkward for my left hand to reach down than it is for my right hand to pull up. And I will play in the exact dead center of the drum. I will not play off center. Now why? We're providing a contrast between that whooshy sound and we're giving it a very definite finish. Now, it doesn't have to be, even in a lyrical piece, it doesn't have to be that you smash the drum. It's not always as hard as you can hit it. You may not have to play very loud, but dead center gives a contrast, and it puts an end on your roll, a release, and that is important. This is going to be soft to about mezzo forte, and I'm going to finish dead center. It wasn't terribly aggressive. It fit the music, and you heard the end of the roll, as opposed to it just kind of sort of flopping off somewhere. If it's notated like that, that's what the composer's intending you to do. Now, let's play it soft to very loud, and I'm going to end in the center. And that would be a real climactic, loud moment in the music. In that stroke, because I had to move laterally and I had to play higher, you'll notice that I didn't have a lot of time because the speed of the roll meant that I was reducing the amount of time I had to lift that mallet. So I did use a little more downward force to that, not a lot. We're talking about a little bit, but I tried desperately to get that mallet as high as I could while still staying in time with the music and the roll. And that's going to take a little bit of practice. Okay? Basic bass drum technique. I hope this is helpful for you. I look forward to seeing you on another video.